welcome to my show Indus Cuisine, and I'm your chef Basim. Akhund. We're back with a new episode from the heart of Pakistan. Today's recipe is very interesting and it's a household name in Pakistan. We're making dal today. But what is dal? Dal is basically a lentil which has risen to fame, you could say, in the West, where people call it a lentil soup. But this has been a part of our culture since the time that Pakistan existed, and even before that time. Why? Because Pakistan got its independence in 1947. This recipe dates back to the time when the civilization of Mohenjo-daro persisted in the province of Sindh, which is a part of Pakistan also. And the remains of the archaeological sites from Mohenjo-daro proved that there were recipes which used this yellow lentil as a superfood back in the day. But as you know, when time passed by, and in the current day Pakistan, basically even after partition, people started experimenting with this single ingredient called dal, also known as masoor dal. This is the specific name of this lentil, and people started incorporating chicken in it. Yes, you've heard it right. Why? Because now, today, or in today's generation, you could say, people are very fond of having meat, and they've basically gone away from those recipes which just had lentil or vegetable in it, and you can see a lot of people incorporating meat such as beef, mutton. Mutton comes from goat, sheep meat, which is also known as lamb meat, and chicken meat. And this recipe is the basic recipe that every household enjoys in Pakistan. After you see this recipe, I can guarantee you one thing. You might think that Pakistanis have a very lavish way of dining at home, and that is right. Why? Because when you eat at home in Pakistan, what usually happens is you can see the dining table at least has 3 to 4 things set for one meal, and then people take small portions of every meal, and then they start their meal of the day, or you could say their dinner time. So what are the ingredients for today? The ingredients are very easy. They're easily found throughout Pakistan and also in other countries. Why? Because nowadays all the superstores around the world keep these ingredients. Why? Because Pakistani food, or you could say Desi food, has risen to fame, and a lot of ingredients which we use in our cuisine is also a part of the cuisine of China, Thailand, Malaysia. Why? Because things such as red chili, cumin, coriander, black pepper, ginger, garlic is something which is used throughout the East and Far East both. Okay, so what do you need first? You need some black peppercorn, you need some garlic finely shredded, you need some ginger, you need some butter, which we'll use towards the end. Then you need some yellow lentil, which I'll basically soak for at least 5 minutes. But if you have time, it's preferable that you soak it for at least half an hour, which would amount to 30 minutes. Then you need some red chili, which is dry. Then you need some cumin seeds. You need some clarified butter, which is over here. Then you need some cumin powder. Apart from that, you would be needing around 1 kilogram of chicken, and I'll be using chicken legs today, in which I'll be taking the chicken leg and the thigh on the side, and then we shall fry it first. Then you need some mint leaves, some lemon towards the end, you need some coriander, you need some onions, you could say 1 onion finely chopped, you need around 2 tomatoes and some fresh green chilies. Yes, these are all the ingredients for today's recipe. And now what we shall do. The first thing what I'll do is I'll bring a bowl, and I'll keep it in front of us. So we'll keep the bowl here, we'll transfer all the lentil, it's all dry, and then you shall add water to it. If you have time at home, let it soak in the water for at least half an hour, and you need to wash it at least 4 to 5 times, just like you wash rice on a daily basis. Okay, I've mixed the lentil, I'm just taking it or mixing it in the water. What will happen is, if there is any added, you could say, dust, that dust usually comes. Why? Because it's a part of a plant. So you will just wash it off and you will drain it. So I will drain it first, and then I'll let it soak for at least 30 minutes. Remember that. So I washed the lentils at least 5 times, and I let it soak for at least 30 minutes. So what will happen? So if you soak the lentil, what happens is it's completely dry right now. It will absorb some water. When it absorbs water, when you cook it it will have a nice balanced flavor and will be consistently cooked. So you need to remember one thing, always soak your lentils for 30 minutes before you start cooking it. Okay, so now if you have a lot of time on your hands, which I doubt, why? Because we live in a globalized world and we don't have too much of time. So what you could do is you could just put it in water and boil it for, you could say, half an hour on medium heat, and then the lentil would be ready. But I know that you do not have half an hour, so what we'll do is we'll use a pressure cooker, and the pressure cooker will allow you to cook this recipe or cook the lentil in 7 to 8 minutes after the whistle goes off. So what I'll do now is I'll pick up the pressure cooker, I'll just bring it over here, increase the heat, and now I'll add some water. You could say I'll add around 5 cups. You always need to remember one thing. Whenever you add water and you add any form of lentil, meat, or anything you add in the pressure cooker, it must be soaked properly. It must be below the water level. You need to understand this. It must be below the water level. Okay, just take some more water and start transferring it. This is how we do it in Pakistan, so that we do not waste any lentil or any rice. Why? Because the thing which is sticking to the bowl or anything you're using to transfer it would amount to more than what you see. Why? Because once you cook it, it goes up in size. So for example, if you see a tablespoon of dry rice, if you cook it, it turns into almost 3 tablespoons of rice. Okay, so this is done. I shall just add around a pinch of salt. Why? Because I want to season it. So the pinch goes in, I'll give it a lid, and I shall let it cook for 6 to 7 minutes, but the time shall start once the whistle starts blowing. Okay, so it's on high heat. Once the whistle starts, what I'll do is I'll reduce the heat. Why? The reason is basically that there's a foam that comes on top of the lentil when you boil it. So if the pressure cooker is too high, the foam is going to start coming out and your equipment will get really dirty. So whenever the whistle goes on, just convert it to the pilot mode and let it cook on really low heat. This is only for lentils. Okay, now we shall start with the recipe. So first what you need is you need a different board. Why? Because I need to get ready with the chicken. So we'll just bring the red board over here. It should be thoroughly washed. I'll bring my cleaver, I'll take the chicken out and I'll put it over here. As you can see, I am just using the chicken legs today. Why? Because it has, you could say, good flavor, fat, and it has more bone. So when it has more bone, so you will get more flavor as compared to if you use the white meat. So what I'll do is I'll just cut it from here, go in, and now slowly hit it down. Okay, now you can see there are 2 pieces. We shall cut it more. Take it from the joint and just hit it slowly. You need to make sure that you do not use your chef knife. Why? Because the chef knife is more fine. It's thinner towards the blade and it can chip easily. Okay, now what I'll do is, this is the joint. I'll just go in and take the legs out. So this is almost done. What we'll do is we shall just apply a few spices on the chicken so that the chicken also gets flavor. Now because I'm recording this show for you, if you have time at home, which I think you should, at least let the chicken sit in this spice for at least half an hour. So the chicken is cut. Now what we'll do is we'll just take a 1/4 teaspoon of cumin. We'll take around a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. We'll take a little bit of cumin seeds. Then what you'll do is you'll take around 1 piece of ginger and I'll just shred it in this directly. And whatever is behind here, you'll pull it and you'll add it over here. So pick this up, throw it over here, and keep this at the back. Now what you need is you need 1 lemon. I'll pick up my paring knife. I'll just cut it in front of you. I won't use the board. Why? Because it has raw chicken on it. And we'll just squeeze the lemon in this. And just mix it up a bit. So I'll pick up a spatula. I'll mix it. And we'll add a little bit of clarified butter. around a tablespoon. This is done. Keep it over here. Mix it up. As you can see, this is not too much. It's just a little bit. Why? Because I just want this to penetrate through the chicken. It's just a light coating which I'm putting on the meat. So what we'll do is we'll just put all the chicken here and we should just spin it around. So just mix it and just massage it in the meat. As you can see, I'm just massaging it so that the meat gets this light flavor and the cuts needs all the flavor in it. So remember, you always have to push the flavor in the cuts of the meat. It's very important. That is how you shall get all the flavor and the even texture which is required for this recipe. So now the chicken is done. I'll keep it in front of you. Let it rest for at least half an hour. So now what I'll do is, till the time I let this rest and till the time the lentils are cooking, we'll go for a short break, and once we're back from the break, there's a lot to do. I'll let you know what to do next. Welcome back. You're watching Indus Cuisine and I'm your chef Basim. Akhund. During the break, I just waited for the lentil, or you could say the dal, to cook properly, and as you can see, it has converted into this nice fine soup. So what some people do is people throw away the water, but this water is basically like stock. This is lentil stock. The way you boil chicken or meat and you get meat stock, chicken stock, this is lentil stock, which has a lot of flavor. You won't let this go to waste. So what I'll do is I shall pick up a wok. I'll place it over here and I shall add this to the wok and let it reduce. So I will reduce this till the time the water in this starts to evaporate and it gets at least half in its quantity. So whenever you're evaporating something or reducing something, what you will always do is you shall always take the lid off. Why? Because if you take the lid off, only then will the evaporation be successful. Okay, so I'll keep it over here, increase the heat in front of you and let it boil. On the other hand, now we need to fry the chicken. So what I'll do first is we shall not deep fry it, but we just need this nice flavor. So what I'll do is I'll add the clarified butter. And as you can see, it's still a little cold in Islamabad. The clarified butter is a little solid. Mix it up. And now reduce the heat to medium. Okay, I'll keep the bowl at the back or the ramekin at the back. Why? Because you do not need it anymore. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll pick up the chicken and I shall just place it over here and let it slowly sear. As you can see, all the pieces are in. I am just shallow frying it, and we should fry this for at least 3 minutes on each side. So let this fry, and now what I'll do is I'll just rinse my hand because I just used raw chicken, and then I shall let you know what to do next. So now as you can see, there are two things happening simultaneously at the same time. So the lentil, which is the dal, is cooking, and at the same time the chicken is also frying. I've just shifted it on the other side. Now what you need to do is you need to remember one thing: always mix it a bit. Why? Because the lentil will start settling at the bottom and it will start sticking. So after every minute and a half or 2 minutes, you will always mix the lentil up like this and then let it boil till it reduces. Now obviously this recipe is incomplete without its spices, the masala. So what we'll do is now we'll make the masala, and for that you need a frying pan. It goes over here and increase the heat and now start cooking with this. You need around, you could say, 2 tablespoons of clarified butter right now, which I'll pick from the back, and then I shall add it into the pan. So now as you can see, everything's ready. It's been 3 minutes to the chicken. Now what I'll do is I'll start turning the chicken. What you'll do first is you'll just see the color. As you can see, it's nicely light brown, which you want it to be. Do not convert it completely into this dark brown texture. Why? Because it will also go and cook with the lentil later on. So I'm just flipping the side of the chicken. And now I'll turn this around completely. So we turn it around and we let it fry properly. Okay, this is done. So now we shall start with the spice. I've reduced the heat over here. The clarified butter was at the back. I'll just transfer around 2 tablespoons right now and keep the remaining at the back. Okay, now what do you need? You need an onion. It goes over here. Keep everything straight. We shall finely chop it. Remember, so the root stays on. Make cuts over here like a flower and just another cut in the center. Go as close as you can. And finally chop it. The root goes away on the side. And as I told you, it's been 2 minutes, so just mix the lentil once again. The lentil is half now, so what we'll do is we'll switch the stove off and just let it rest now. You can see this nice soupy texture. This shall remain. And now what I'll do is I'll give it a lid. The lid goes on, this goes at the back, and now all the onions are going to go over here. So you need to remember one thing for this recipe. The onions need to be light brown. We need that light brown flavor for the onions so that we get this nice balanced texture and aroma in the final recipe. Okay, increase the heat to full, take a pinch of salt, add it over here and mix it up. Give it a lid and let it cook on high heat for at least 1 minute. This is done. Now we need 2 tomatoes. They're over here. Just take the eye of the tomato off. This goes on the side. And keep an eye on the onion also, because you do not want it to overcook. Always keep your station clean, remember that. That's the first thing you need when you're cooking. Okay, we'll finally chop the tomatoes like this. If you keep the tomatoes really fine, then only you'll get a nice silky smooth texture. Otherwise, you wouldn't. Remember that. This is done. Okay, so it's been a minute over here. I'll switch the stove off of the chicken. Why? Because the chicken is done. Mix it up again. And now what you need to do is you need to dish the chicken out momentarily. Why? Because you want the chicken to rest. So I'll just pick the chicken up and I'll transfer it to a bowl. As I told you, it needs to be light brown. I will not overcook it. So this recipe requires a lot of flavor, remember that. For that, we will not waste the oil in which the chicken was fried partially. So this is done. I'll pick the chicken up, I'll keep it in front of you over here. As I've told you, this chicken is not completely cooked. I've just cooked it 70%. This is not the lid, so what I'll do is I'll let it rest over here. Okay, now on the other hand, the onions are nicely light brown, you can see. Now we shall add the tomatoes to the pan. Okay, the tomatoes go in. The tomatoes are on the room temperature, so what will happen is the temperature of the pan will come down automatically, remember that. Mix it up. And now add another pinch of salt. I want the tomatoes to sweat nicely, so the salt will give it a chance to sweat properly. Okay, reduce the heat to medium, and now I'll pick up a ladle and I'll add some of this oil over here. Now what will happen is the flavor of the chicken will go in the tomatoes when they are frying nicely and evenly. So what we'll do is we'll just spread the tomatoes out and let it cook on medium heat for at least 2 minutes with the lid on, so that they get really soft. So the lid goes here. I'll clean my knife, I'll clean my station and let you know what to do next. So as you can see, everything's done. The lentil over here is nice and thick, it's cooked. The tomatoes are done over here, and now it's time to assemble the recipe. Remember one thing, whenever you have tomatoes which are cooking on high heat in oil or clarified butter, or you could say normal butter, you always need to bring them on the side and always press them down. Why? Because you want to convert them into a nice paste before anything else hits the pan. Why? Because if you do not convert them into a paste right now and add something else on top in terms of the temperature, what will happen is that the texture of the tomatoes will stay there and they won't convert into a paste. Why? Because they will get tough or stiff again. Okay, this is done. Shake it up. Mix it, and now we shall add the spices. First we'll go in with the cumin powder. It goes on the side. Then we'll add some cumin seeds. Then you need some red chili, which is dried, and then you'll add some peppercorns. Mix it up nicely so that these spices get a nice chance to cook in the tomato oil which is in the pan itself. Okay, this is done. I'll keep the heat low. Why? Because now we need some garlic. We need around 3 cloves, which we'll press first like this, and then we shall finally chop them and chop it. This is done. Scoop it up and transfer it to the pan. You want to mix it up again. Why? Because the garlic needs a chance to fry evenly. This is done, and now we come towards the ginger. We do not need so much of ginger, so what I'll do is I'll just take this much and I'll take whatever is not needed on the side and I'll keep it over here. The butter goes towards the end. What you need now is you need some ginger, which shall be sliced finely, and then we shall finely chop it. So whenever you're chopping ginger finely, you will always convert it into fine slices and you'll rest them on the side like this. This is for the Pakistani food, remember that. This is done. Pick up the root or the end part and throw it on the side. Now just turn it around, bring it close, press it down and finally chop it. And this is done. I'll transfer all of this to the pan and I'll mix it up once more. The spice mix is ready. So now what we'll do is we'll add the chicken back to the pan, add all the juices, place it properly, let it sit, and now we'll add the remaining clarified butter in which we fried the chicken. This goes on top. Increase the heat to full, and now we shall add the lentils which we cooked separately. The lentils go on top. Nice and rich, as you can see. And the oil from the side is coming up, and this is what, when I say fried dal, actually means. Reduce the heat and let it slowly cook for at least 7 to 8 minutes with a lid on. So when this is done, I'll show you the final look, and there's one more thing that is left for this recipe, which I'll let you see after this process. So now the lentil is ready, the chicken is cooked. Now towards the end, what will you do? You need around 6 green chilies, which you'll finally chop and add towards the end. Why? Because I do not want the green chilies to cook to a point that they get really soft and mushy. I want them to maintain their texture for this recipe and to maintain their flavor. So just add the 6 green chilies over here and keep the stems out. They don't need to be really finely chopped. I want them to come in each and every bite, so we'll just add them on the top. I changed the wok. Why? Because I want some movement in the recipe. So this goes in. And now what you need is you need some coriander. So we'll take some fresh coriander, pull it out, and then just turn it around. You want the stems also, so just go really fine, but the beginning part will be thrown on this side. Why? Because that's the part which is the most dirty and which is basically in the soil. So it's easier to take it out and then chop the coriander. You finally chop it. This is done, and the remaining goes to waste. Okay, slowly and gradually just keep chopping it. And now transfer all of this onto the wok. Everything is done. Increase the heat, mix it up just once. See the texture, it's nice and smooth. This is what you want. The chicken is nicely cooked, and now I shall dish it out. So as you can see, today's recipe is ready. It's delicious, and I've just dished it out for 2 people. The remaining is on the side. The last thing what you need to do is you need to temper it. Usually tempering is done with oil or clarified butter, but for this recipe you use pure butter. So I'll just add the butter over here. I'll mix it. I'll let it melt. So the butter should be on room temperature. With that, add 3 green chilies whole. Keep mixing it and increase the heat to high. This is done. And now what we shall do is we shall just pick this up and add it on top. Today's recipe is ready. I hope you liked today's episode. I'll see you in another episode of Indus Cuisine. Take care of yourself. Bye-bye.